Yeah. Where do I stop it?
I don't know.
Where you just said.
Invisible. Does anyone know what this is?
Stop in the middle.
With you, right?
Uh-huh.
But how appropriate.
I know.
Poor Joanne.
I
Yes.
say her name until I say her name.
Oh, I forget. I know.
That's how we
Half
start
the
our
time I
show.
don't even know who the guests are. So
All right, we're going to take a pause. And no, I'm not kidding. We're not going to start. Welcome to In the City with Resourcity. I am your co-host, Nicholas Cabrera.
Tony Gould.
Tony, you're your co-host.
Joanne.
Oh, what? What are we doing, man? What's going on here?
I don't know.
We're going to sing today.
But I
Let's
know
go back
who
to
it
the
is.
music.
I know who it is today, and I'm very excited about it.
I am too.
Yeah,
and
great.
now I think it's time to introduce our guest.
Okay.
Go for it.
Today with us, we have the wonderful Joanne Meagher. We hear applause? No applause? You had one job.
Oh, thank you. Thank
not
you very
sure
much.
what
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, Joanne, welcome to
Thank
In
you
the
very
City.
much.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I have a wonderful Irish name
Do you?
because if anyone sees it in print, it looks like Meagher. But my husband helped people. Of course, I was not married to him at the time, but when he went to vote for the elections for student council,
Yeah.
his little motto was MEAGHER, Mar is the best by far. So
Oh,
that's how
what?
people can remember.
Interesting.
What did he run for in
Meagher
student
is
council?
Mar. No, it was student council.
What did he run for?
Oh gosh,
Just
it's like
position.
vice president where you do nothing.
Well,
but
was
I
vice
think he
president and
won.
I did a lot.
I know that because you're Nico Cabrera. That's
I appreciate that.
yeah. And you know what? I'm really, really excited to be on this show today with
Well, thank
you.
you.
I just met Tony, but I'm really excited to be. So yes, we're going to get to know each other. But I'm really excited to be here with you because you and I share a characteristic.
Do we?
Yes, we do.
What is that characteristic?
That characteristic is a natural enthusiasm and curiosity about our world and the people that we encounter in it.
Absolutely right. And you would-
Absolutely.
and
I
you
knew
would
that
get
the
along from the
second
day
I
we
met
met.
you.
Oh, there it is. Well,
Yeah.
Joanne, welcome to In the City. We stream live every Thursday at 3 p.m. right here from Miami Community News. And today's episode is sponsored by Hudak on Hollywood. Dan Hudak was our guest last Thursday. If you have not seen that episode yet, please be sure to check it out, Miami Community News. A great show. We actually talked about all things Oscars and film, which is great because the Oscars are just around the corner.
I was just asking Andres when they were. I have no idea.
What?
I don't know when they are.
I forgot
I
already.
forgot already too.
But don't say that.
But we had a great show last week, and those were two consummate professionals, and Renee as well.
Renee Rodriguez
was,
and Dan
these
Hudak.
guys were great.
Yeah.
They know their stuff. They're used to the camera. I was one of my favorite shows. So Joanne, you have some big shoes to
It was
fill.
also
Okay.
our longest show. It was an hour and 11
It
minutes.
ran a little long.
Oh my goodness.
But it was
But
a lot of
it was an
good
Oscars
information.
thing. They had to have the Oscars music to take us off.
Yeah.
Nice.
But it was a good show. So Joanne, gonna have to bring it.
Okay.
gonna
You
bring
might
it,
need
man.
the
I will
Irish
try.
accent before
I will try.
before the day's over.
Awesome. Well, Joanne, tell us a little bit about yourself. You came to Miami, and I think you told me in 1986, correct?
Mhm.
And you're originally from Buffalo, New York.
Mhm.
All right. So what brought you to Miami?
Well, my parents used to come down here, in the 60s, and we'd stay in Pompano Beach and make fun of these people who lived in the little pink houses in Miami. And I had no idea I would ever end up living in one of those little
Tony
pink
lives in a pink
houses. I do too. Coral color, actually. But came by way of my parents did end up moving down to Florida after the blizzard of 1977.
Oh, enough is enough.
Yes, exactly. And my dad said, I don't care where you go to college as long as it's in state. So I picked University of South Florida, ended up there, met my future husband. He went up to DC to go to law school. I followed him up there. He came back down here. I followed him back down here. We ended up in Miami.
Amazing.
So-
And
Very nice.
Miami first, not Coral Gables.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Lived in Brickletown House, right by the causeway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And I just thought I had landed in absolute paradise. I mean,
Did you?
all this place, all the palm trees, and, there was a pool, and it was, fantastic. And people went to school and they got to go outside in between classes. That was a real concept for me. So I started out working at, as an interpreter for the hearing impaired at Miami Central High School.
Oh, do you know sign language?
I have forgotten a lot of it,
Oh, okay.
but
Very good sign language.
yes. Mhm.
Very cool. And then at what point did you move into the Gables, and what kind of influenced you to move?
So when I was working in DC, I worked for the American Annals of the Deaf, and I was a writer and editor. So I moved here. I opened the Miami Herald and started to look for all those wonderful jobs in editing and writing. And I looked in E and nothing. Oh, they must all be listed under writer, right? So I go to W. Nothing.
Mhm.
Well, in DC, it's the mecca for nonprofit organizations. And so this was a rude awakening that the job prospects were very different in Miami. So that's when I started volunteering at the Deaf Services Bureau. And that's how I ended up getting into going from a volunteer to actually working with the folks at Miami Central High School. But eventually I landed that writing position, and that was at the University of Miami. So I worked there for 11 years in alumni relations at the business school.
Okay, right. You had
Yeah.
mentioned that before, and you had started also a mentor program at the University of Miami.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about that.
That was pretty cool because, of course, these business students are studying finance and accounting and all these great things, but had no real inkling as to what that meant when they would graduate. So ended up starting to recruit in the business leaders. And we started off that first year with 30 students. And then eventually we're up to, by the time I left the university, we're up to 180
Wow.
student matches. And some really wonderful success stories throughout those years. So yeah, it was a really nice
relationship with them.
With the University of Miami.
Some of the students, University of Miami.
Yeah, some of them. I do. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you're almost a jack of all trades, because you also were in chorus, and you have some skills in the arts, the performing arts, right? So please tell us some about that. Were you an actress
Thanks.
yourself?
I did a lot of musical theater in high school and all those kinds of things. And I do call myself a card-carrying member of Overactors Anonymous because I have done lots of things for children, Vacation Bible School, where I have taken on the persona of everything from a banana to a seamstress. She was a zebra who I made her into a seamstress. So she was a seamstress. And of
Right.
course, she was from New York.
Oh, very nice.
And
Excellent.
I do like to pull that kind of stuff out every now and then.
I see where you get it. Okay.
uh,
Okay.
And if I had there, I was thinking about this before coming here. If they asked me that, what's one word to describe you? I would say a joiner. So yeah, it's the arts, it's historic preservation, it's animal welfare, it's environmental, I just join a lot of things, and so ended up filling the schedule.
And a couple topics that we're going to talk about
Yeah.
just shortly. And you're still in choir now?
Mhm.
Okay. And where do you do that?
So I sing in a couple different organizations, but one that I want to mention because there's an event coming up on Sunday, April 3rd. That is Trinity Cathedral.
Oh, okay.
And it's called Anglican Chorale. We had to take a break during the pandemic, but we're so thrilled to be back after 2 years. And the nice thing, fun fact to know and tell about Trinity Cathedral is it's the oldest church in the city of Miami. So that building itself was built in 1925. However, the church was founded, the land on which the church was founded was donated by none other than a woman, Julia Tuttle. As far as I understand, Miami is the only city in the United States that was founded by a woman. I mean, founded, you could say,
Someone said this
she,
last week. Did we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard this from
Somebody might have
someone
mentioned that.
mentioned
Yeah.
this. Yeah, I didn't know this.
so Trinity.
Yeah,
I knew of Julia Tuttle.
Well,
Right,
March being
right.
Women's History Month, of course, March, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's great to talk about, women
Mhm.
in our show, an amazing, influential woman in our community as well. But please continue. I want to hear more.
So the other kind of neat thing about Trinity is, well, it's a beautiful church. It's right on the corner of Northeast Bayshore and 15th Street, right as you're going over the Venetian Causeway. Wonderful mosaics, a Skinner organ, 4-second reverb in the place.
Okay.
So it's a really wonderful place to listen to the kind of music we do, which is plain chant, where you have a very, very straight tone and you want the sound to just float.
Okay.
And we have a fabulous organist. So we do this thing called evensong. It's very Anglican. It's not like a part of the British tradition. Apparently, it started out with vespera, vespers in Latin, which in Old English was evensong, which turned into evensong. So it's an hour-long service, but mostly music. And so if people want to, if you're interested, come at 5:30 to Trinity Cathedral on April 3rd and enjoy some great music. But,
that is amazing.
Yeah. And then the last thing I'll mention about that is that Trinity Cathedral is the only cathedral south of Atlanta, or the only church, south of Atlanta that has a bell tower.
Oh.
And I ring bells in the bell tower. We have 8 bells.
That is so cool.
And again, we've taken a break because of the pandemic, but I'm hoping that we'll get the group back together again. But I could go on for about 3 hours just on bell ringing alone.
I kind of want to know a little bit now.
Phenomenal.
I'm a little intrigued.
It's so cool.
How many people
so
are
cool.
involved in that bell ringing?
So they call it a choir, actually.
Choir. Okay.
And I, like many people, thought that, what's the big deal? You yank on a rope and the bell swings. Well, it's actually extremely mathematical because you have a forehand and a backhand, and the bell doesn't, the clapper doesn't go like this. The entire bell actually makes a revolution and goes up and hits something else and then comes back and goes down. So you have to be very careful. Your technique determines when the sound happens.
Sure.
So it's not like you could play songs. You're playing, because it would be very slow. Mare, had, no, that wouldn't work. But you're playing a series of notes, and all of those series have different names. So you could, and again, it's very British. So it could be, Gloucester surprise. And that means that maybe the 4 bell rings before the 6 bell, and then the other, and you've got some that are very light and others that are thousands of pounds. But if the technique is right, it's like butter. So
cool.
And people work on learning this technique for years and years and years. And once you've got it down, you can be 85 years old and, and kind of crawl in the place. And if you know how to ring that bell, you can ring, a 5,000-pound bell like it's nothing.
That song, the Christmas song, the Roger Whittaker, "Ding Dong Merrily on High." The beginning of that
yes,
song.
yes.
That's what I'm picturing. It sounds like that. The beginning of that song has the bells, and it's actually very pretty. I think so. It's only one note per bell, obviously.
One note per bell,
and so everyone's just responsible. So you might be the C note, and someone's
yeah.
So Tony, you got a new hobby?
I would love to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe the Hunchback of,
really...
So I think that we're going to replace In the City with In the Bells. And we're going to start doing that on Thursdays at 3 p.m. instead.
There you go.
Miami Community News, we're out. But no, that's actually
it's the most fun new thing I have tried in a long time.
When did you
because it really taxes your brain. About 2016, I think, somewhere along there.
Cool. I learned something new about you every time we sit together.
And I will say, I did get the chance when I was brand new to this to go up to Washington National Cathedral, our Episcopal cathedral for the entire country, and ring the bells there. They have 16 and an amazing bell choir.
Wow.
And I didn't sleep at all the night before, and my hands were dripping because, one, if you don't do it right, you can hurt the bell. You can break a stay.
Yeah.
The stay is the wooden piece, and that costs people money. Or you can hurt yourself if you get your hand caught in the rope going up, or whatever. But that was an absolute thrill.
I saw a video yesterday of a church bell pulling a guy up.
Yes.
And he ended up on top of the bell and he couldn't get down.
Oh God.
You happened to be looking at church bell videos yesterday?
No, I just did.
I know.
I think it was on
Are you
TikTok.
lying?
I was just like scrolling through TikTok, and it was literally a church bell. I think my phone read an email or something like that. I was like, weird. But
so topic, because I'm curious.
Yeah.
It's 16 bells.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking, okay, octave, but there's only 7 notes, right? A, B, C, D, F, G.
Yeah, so it just keeps
extras?
going. I mean, the different towers start with different bells.
I see.
And you've asked me a question I can't remember because it's been 2 years, because we have the side. So it's not every bell.
Okay.
It's not.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Now, okay, so talking about churches and historic preservation history, I guess I thought that Plymouth was the oldest church in South Florida. Plymouth and Coconut Grove, but it seems.
Well, Trinity was started off in a wooden building in 1896, right? A couple of months before June 12th, actually, 1896, a couple of months before the city of Miami was founded. Yeah. So I guess that what they say, it's the oldest in the city center, like
Yeah, that makes
city of Miami
I don't know.
proper.
City of Miami proper, within
Right.
jurisdiction,
Right.
not metro or not
Exactly.
Miami-Dade, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, you're right. Because Plymouth
Where is
was
Plymouth?
around, right?
Plymouth is right there in Coconut Grove.
Oh, it's
off of-
Miami. That's Miami.
Mhm.
But,
But it was
may be a
Coconut
little-
Grove at that time. It
right,
was not
which
considered Miami.
Right.
If you haven't been
Yeah.
to Plymouth Church, the exterior is absolutely spectacular.
No, I had someone was like a brother to me got married there.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful church.
Oh my
Absolutely
gosh.
gorgeous.
Mhm.
It's just extraordinary.
It is.
Well, I love. This is super cool to hear. Now you were telling me more. So we talked about Trinity Cathedral, and you were saying about pets, animals. So you told us at the start of the show that you're involved with Paws for You and the Dachshund Rescue of South Florida.
Mhm.
What got you involved in that?
So once you own a dachshund, you'll always be a dachshund lover.
Okay.
So I had a dachshund when I was
Oh, God.
12.
I have jokes.
Yeah.
And yes. So I just came to the right. The time was right to have a dog, and so I just started with Dachshund Rescue, and so their whole thing is they're socially. What do you call it? A source, it's source funding, social. When what do you call- crowdsourcing. Yes,
Crowdfunding, yeah.
it's all crowdsourced funding. Excuse me. Blah.
Crowdfunded, yeah.
And they want to keep the dogs out of the cages. So while they're waiting to get adopted, they go to foster homes. So my long-suffering patient husband has lived through 13 or 14 fosters right now. I mean, not all at once, but in a series. And all of them have their issues, but it's a wonderful, wonderful organization. And they even had established a relationship with someone who was doing rescue in China, and brought over, I think, 3 or 4 dachshunds and 1 greyhound
Mhm.
To help them escape from the meat trade in China.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and of course, it costs a lot to vet these dogs, but they're very careful about who gets to adopt them, but they take every kind of dog. You have the ones that were, just the older person passed away, and this is a wonderful dog ready for adoption, and then you have the ones that were abused, and the other ones who are incredibly sick, and I'm amazed at the work. I mean, it just never ends for these women.
And
for
this
the
is all
people.
through Dachshund Rescue and Paws for You?
Well, Paws for You is definitely a similar organization. I've gotten involved with them during the pandemic, and lots of opportunities for volunteering there. They do have a foster program, but they also have a facility that's right near the falls, and they are always up for people coming in and helping clean out the kennels and wash the dog bowls and all those kinds of things, and of course financial support. And they were just covered by community newspapers. Actually,
yeah.
they just had their fundraising ball,
With Gloria.
and
too.
Gloria
Right?
covered that. Yeah,
Gloria
so that's
Burns.
another great organization. So I do the garage sales for them.
That's so cool.
Sell a bunch of junk for
Self-check.
yeah, $1,000 a pop. It adds up eventually.
So cool.
So
Yeah, kids and animals is what do you get to me. So
oh,
I used to give money to Pilots for Paws, and I was going to do flights for that. So this is where you fly animals from one location to either to get care or to a foster home, and pilots would
Mhm.
volunteer to do this. And I'm a private pilot, and I was going to do a flight because I was trying to find flights near me where I could do them, and just bad timing because then I stopped being current. I didn't get my biannual. So I was no longer current and couldn't do it. And then it got away from me. But there was St. Jude's and Pilots for Paws were the 2 causes when I was, younger that I always gave to kids and animals. So
Mhm.
you're hitting the heartstrings when you tell them about
I
animals
know
and
it's
dogs.
wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Full-grown
yeah.
adults, regular size humans. Okay, we'll help them. But kids and dogs, you got me.
That's
I actually had I've had one foster I had for a day and a half, another one I had for a year and a half. One that had been with us for 8 months, and was not a particular favorite of my husband's. The very day that he got adopted, that morning, my husband left the house and said, "What's the exit strategy for this dog?" And that afternoon, I called him and said, "He's been adopted." A guy from Boston flew down specifically to adopt Rico.
Wow.
Didn't go to his own rescue in Boston. I guess maybe there's not a dachshund place in Boston, but yeah, flew down with all the brand new stuff,
Nice.
and
Yeah.
and
That's
ended
gotta
up
make you feel
giving
good,
Rico a
yeah.
fabulous life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what
awesome.
you want to see. That
Yeah.
Do you stay in touch with?
I do. I do. I get all these nice little pictures and videos from people.
I'm sure that's a
Yeah.
good feeling.
It
Well,
is.
In the nature of animals, you also mentioned that you're involved with Pelican Harbor.
Yeah,
It's a
Pelican
Seabird,
Harbor Seabird Station. As of today, I wrote it down. 38,326 patients served at Pelican Harbor Seabird Station. So they focus on native birds, small mammals, and reptiles.
Wow.
And so we're talking songbirds, shorebirds, birds that are migrating through. Of course, our pelicans. It was started by a couple on their houseboat in 1980. They brought one pelican kind of back to life, and people saw what they did and started bringing their pelicans, and then that's how it started. And so we have a wonderful the facility is not great, but we have a wonderful staff of people and about a cadre of about 100 volunteers up at 79th Street Causeway.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And what's your role with them?
So I gladly muck out pelican pools, and I go there every Friday, clean everything out, prepare all the food for the birds and the little baby possums. There's nothing cuter than a baby possum, and it's baby season, so we get to feed the squirrels with the little syringes and stuff. So it's it's dirty work, but someone's got to do it, and it's wonderful. And and then they also have a wonderful group of people. I'm on this, I do when I can, who are on a WhatsApp, and someone says, okay, there's a rescue that we need down in South Dade or whatever, people are on it, and they will bring the animal. They will either capture the animal, or someone else has got them already in a box, and they take them up so it's all related to rescue, rehab, and release.
Amazing.
But of course, we have some that become permanent because they can't be released. So,
how can some of our viewers support these three causes? Do they accept donations?
Absolutely. Yes. PelicanHarbor.org. Wonderful website. They have all kinds of really informative videos and lots of ways to give, and cute pictures, and they're all over social media and Instagram and Facebook and all of that. So PelicanHarbor.org. Docs at Rescue is DRSF, Docs at Rescue South Florida. Same thing. They have good social media presence. And then pause the number 4 you.
Very cool. That's awesome.
Very adorbs.
Like this is why we wanted to bring you on our show today. Awesome people doing awesome things in our community. And you don't just focus on one area, you focus on all of Greater Miami. I want to take a moment to take a look. Do we have any comments? Quick recognition of our associate producer, Andres, and our assistant sound guy, guest sound guy, Jared, today. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Do we have any comments here?
From the thousands who are watching
No comments
currently?
Usually millions.
Wow. Well, actually, today we have 5 million viewers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's great. 5 million people out there listening to all the great things that you do in our community, Joanne. And with it being Women's History Month, take a moment to acknowledge a very influential woman in our community whose book you have here on the table in front of us, the late Arva Moore Parks, who was truly an incredible woman, a historian in Coral Gables. So now we're bringing it back into our community where the three of us live. Tell us a little bit about Arva and why you brought this book. George Merrick, son of the South Wind.
Bookmarks in there.
Yes.
She's a smart woman. So,
yes. So this has, I've been on the governing board of the Merrick House since 2008. And this book is the basis for our docent manual, our tour guides, and I'm also a tour guide. So this and we have a wonderful manual, but it was most of the information came from this. So I call this my Bible for the Merrick House. All roads lead to the Merrick House.
I didn't.
Yes, all roads lead to the Merrick House at 907 Coral Way. And do you know why? Well, because I will tell you why.
Tell us why.
I will tell you why. If you go anywhere in Coral Gables, let's say you admire the Coral Gables Waterway, or you go to the Biltmore, or you go to Coral Gables Congregational Church, or the Colonnade, or Douglas Entrance, or the Water Tower, the plazas, all these beautiful buildings, in addition to all the nice Mediterranean style homes and Chinese Village, and on and on and on and on and on. Well, that's all because of this one man. And we're also going to get back to the women involved.
I'd like to, yes.
And Arva, of course, we're not going to forget her. So bring me back to this. But it's all because of one man's vision, which is truly remarkable, I think, because so many times a city comes together, over time, and it's amalgamation of all these different ideas, and maybe it has a plan and maybe it doesn't. But the Coral Gables is because of George Merrick, and 907 Coral Way is where George Merrick lived from the time he was 13 till he got married. And then he actually did come back and live with Mama for a while too, during the tough times. But the family moved here in 1900. That house was completed in 1910 when things were going better. But it's quite a story of all the hardships they endured to get to the point in 1921 where George is actually able to sell his first 75 lots. They started out with a 160-acre homestead, and by 1921 had 1,600 acres to start selling off, and his dream for Coral Gables started to be realized. And that's what Arva, by the time Arva became interested in George Merrick, because Arva grew up in Miami Shores, a lot of the houses in Coral Gables, she describes it in 1970 that people weren't, this idea of celebrating all these wonderful Mediterranean homes hadn't really taken a hold. And she said people had kind of forgotten about George Merrick. So we have her to thank for remembering him. And one of the places that he considered his greatest legacy was the University of Miami.
Correct.
And he gave 160 acres. Kind of interesting that it was the same amount of acreage as the original homestead. He donated 160 acres for the founding of that university, and started off with a promise of $100,000, which became $1 million, and then he promised another $5 million if the other founders would pitch in, and helped keep the university afloat after the hurricane of 1926. And so at any rate, but when you get to the Merrick House, I always like to tell people that it's the house that Althea built. Althea was George's mother. And Althea Carilla Fink. She was the most gregarious, enthusiastic, can-do kind of person. She was married to Solomon Greasley Merrick, who had a tendency toward depression, was very serious. He was a congregational minister. He ends up taking over Union Congregational Church, which becomes Plymouth. And she often had to preach in his stead when he was going through his bouts of depression. But she was so can-do and so gregarious, and she passed all of those characteristics. She got them from her father. She passed all of those characteristics onto her son, and much to the consternation sometimes of her husband, who would just stamp his foot and say, "Oh my gosh, there you go again, you Finks! You're always trying to turn black into white. Why is everything so rosy for you?" Right. So he actually coined it Finkism. That characteristic. But she, when there was no school for her kids to go to, she made it happen. She was able to find a teacher, Miss Cobb, and they would only send her out to the plantation. They called it the plantation. It was a farm, but they would only send them out to her land if she had 10 students. Well, she only had 5 of her own kids. So she contacted all the neighbors. Well, the nearest neighbor was 2 miles away.
Oh my goodness.
So she said, "Do you want to send your children to my school on my property?" And they said, "Well, yeah, sure, that's fine. Except My child is going to probably have to walk there in the dark, at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. And there might be strangers, but also panthers, raccoons, snakes. I mean, there are a lot
That's
of
what we're
rattlesnakes.
scared of.
Yeah, all of those things. So thanks, but no thanks. And she said, okay, fine. Now, mind you, this is when they are living in a 2-room shack, affectionately and accurately called the Shack,
Okay.
32 by 20
Where was
feet.
this one?
It's right where the house is now.
The Merrick House?
The Merrick House. That
Oh, how interesting.
original shack is basically kind of where the living room starts.
I'm assuming it's the shack that when you walk into the Coral Gables Museum, it's the room immediately to the right. Of
Yeah,
the
there's a
gallery.
picture.
Yeah,
there's a
okay,
drawing of
right.
it that the youngest Merrick, Richard Merrick, did from memory
Oh,
because he
how
wasn't born until 1903. He was the only Merrick born in Florida. The
Mm.
rest of the family came from Massachusetts. So she said, "Okay, fine. I've got all these people living in my house. There's no plumbing, no kitchen. They did all their laundry, all their cooking outside over an open flame and everything else. But fine, send your kids here and they can stay with us for the whole week and then go back on the weekend." So that little shack was bursting at the seams. But she called it the Guavonia School, based on the guavas that helped keep the family afloat that first summer, because they had spent almost their entire savings to get here. And of that 160 acres, there was only an acre and a half of guava trees and like 1 acre cleared. So where do they begin? And so George would climb up the trees, get the guavas, put them on the wagon, take them down to Captain Simmons' packing house, which was now the Campong.
Mhm.
And he was able to earn the grand total of $300 that first summer, and that was a lot of money. It was enough for them to be able to buy the saplings that would eventually become their grapefruit and
Grapefruit.
and
was
so
orange
interesting.
groves.
Golf course.
Yeah.
You have so much knowledge.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Don't get me started about because
Well,
I have.
questions, actually.
I am good. I'm glad you should ask me questions because
Okay.
I will go on forever. And one of the things I really have to work on my tours is whittling them down, because I could go on for hours
You
and
can
hours
just
and
tell
hours.
people
I
now.
love the Merricks. I love Althea.
Now you
Yes.
can tell people on
Love
the
it.
tours, if you want to learn more, go watch In the City, episode 9, a Miami Community
That's
News,
right.
and you can learn more about the history
Yeah.
of George Merrick and the city. Now,
Yeah, I could
I
show
have
you that too.
yes, I want to hear about this in a moment. Now, this is a little bit of knowledge I have because, of course, I
Yeah,
grew up in Coral Gables,
you know
so I
your
know a
stuff
lot.
too, dude.
So my understanding is that Coral Gables, the name, was actually the original name of the Merrick House.
That's correct.
And the reason for this was because of the steep gables,
Mhm.
which was really traditional up in northern United States to keep snow off the roof. And then when they built the home out of the limestone rock, which was quarried from Venetian Pool,
Mhm.
which eventually became they hit the freshwater spring, became the Venetian Pool and Casino. Rock was used to build a lot of the original homes in the gables. That's where the name came from, Coral Gables.
Yep.
And so that's where the name comes from, right?
Right. Althea actually designed the house.
She did. Okay.
And so she designed it with all the things she wanted and needed. So she was an artist, and very unusual for the time, because when she graduated from college, that's where she and her husband met at good old LVC, Lebanon Valley College in Pennsylvania. She got hired as the head of the art department. And that's really unusual. They met in 1879. The college had only been open, I think, 13 years. So she was an artist and a very accomplished artist. And so she designed the house with the art molding, so you could have a revolving museum of your art and those kinds of things. And they were, of course, bibliophiles, so they have all these wonderful built-in bookcases and everything. But when they completed the house, they started. I come to the house and for the tour, and I'll tell you more. But when they completed the house, it was considered a very grand home at that
Right,
time, and
it
so that
still
was the
is.
tradition to name your house.
Yeah.
And she wanted to name it Among the Pines, because at that time there was still all those Dade County pines all the way around. We have 4 still on the property, but of course Dade County pines were cut down by the thousands to
Right.
make our wonderful floors in our old houses, and yes. But she was outvoted by the family, and they said, "Yeah, let's call it Coral Gables." So who knows? Our city might have been among the pines
Could have been.
if she had gotten her
Among the
way.
Pines, the city beautiful.
Yeah.
No, but truly, I mean, the Merrick House itself, and if any of our viewers have not seen it, you said the address. They can
907 Coral
907
Way.
Coral Way. it is one of the most extraordinary homes. It is the most extraordinary home in Coral Gables. And we have houses that are just out of this world. Beautiful. If you drive up and down Riviera and Granada and Coral Way, homes that are just truly magnificent. But the Merrick House itself, the way that it's placed on the land, it looks like an estate. It's just so gorgeous. And the way that it opens up to the city. I mean, every time I ride by it, I'm just like, there's just nothing like this. There's nothing like this house in Coral Gables. But what we also don't realize is that our history, the city of Coral Gables and that of Coconut Grove and the Peacocks and Plymouth, it's all interconnected. It's the same family.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Peacock Park, that family, that's who Merrick married.
Mm-hmm.
That was his wife.
Yep.
I mean, it's just so incredible to sit back and look at how we have all these connections, not Coral Gables just being itself, but all around us. And that's one of the things I
and
love.
we're lucky that our remembered George Merrick, but we're also lucky that a couple of other people came along and recognized the importance of these kinds of structures. Because, looking back now, we think, well, of course you would think that the boyhood home of George Merrick is important, but that wasn't always the case. And in the 60s, when the last Merrick family member, Ethel, who had run the house as Merrick Manor, as a boarding house throughout the lean years during the Depression and everything else, and she was getting up there in years, she wanted to have a plan for what would happen to the house. And she tried to sell it to the city for 10 years, and the city was not interested. Yeah. And so along comes this cantankerous gentleman by the name of W.L. Philbrick. He was on the city commission at the time, and he owned a funeral home, and he didn't care what people thought of him. And Dorothy Thompson knew him, so she can tell you stories about him.
Dorothy Thompson.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yes. She has incredible stories. So she has stories about going to the Merrick House when it was in a total state of disrepair, with kids from the Daughters of the American Revolution, and they would go and take care of the grounds. And yeah, so she has great stories. But at any rate, so he said, I am not willing to see this house get sold and razed and obliterated. So he bought it and then worked for another 10 years to convince the neighborhood that it wasn't going to become Disney World, and also to convince the city. So if eventually the city buys it, he loses $16,000 in the transaction, but that's okay. And the ladies of the Junior League primarily, but the villagers and some other, I think the villagers were involved as well. Yeah, because they finally changed it into a house museum in 1978.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, there's one last gentleman I want to talk about, because I want to talk about women.
Okay.
Doc
Dammers.
Doc Dammers. This is a good one.
What a character. Yes.
So you were talking about cantankerous and energetic. So you were talking a little bit earlier about in 1921,
Mm-hmm.
they had the first land auction.
Mm-hmm.
And so back in October of this past year, we celebrated your vision, Doc Dammers Day, which was truly magnificent. It was a great event. One of my all-time favorite events in Coral Gables.
Oh, yay.
That and the tour of kitchens. They're like, but that's because they're very similar in the way that they were styled.
Mm-hmm.
You go from one location to the next. But we started at the Coral Gables Museum. We all dressed up in 1921 garb and
Mm-hmm.
attire, and had the time of our lives. And we started there at the museum, took a trolley to the Merrick House, then to Venetian Pool at Biltmore, and then back for a celebration. How did this event start? And really, who was Doc Dammers?
Yeah, a wonderful, wonderful woman. Colette Worm is our docent coordinator and cares for the house. Unfortunately, she's moving away from us. Her husband got a fabulous job with NASA. They're moving back to DC.
That's a great
So we're very sad to see her go. But Colette would always plant little seeds, and she'd say, we're talking during the pandemic. She goes, we're coming up on 100 years of the first lots being sold. Maybe we should commemorate that in some way. And then all of a sudden we just started talking, and things went from there. But yeah, and we decided, okay, how can we tell this story? People have heard about George Merrick, and they might think, yeah, I already know. So how can we tell the story from a different angle? And we decided to pick the person that would become the first mayor of Coral Gables. But there wasn't a whole lot known about him other than, okay, there's this the gentleman was always standing on top of a mule cart and leading the auctions. But we found out a lot of really neat things about him along the way, and people love. He was so entertaining that people would come to the auctions just to see him in action. And at one point he had 3,000, and George Merrick knew what he needed to publicize Coral Gables. And so he grabbed on to Doc Dammers. I mean, he was never a doctor. He was just, he apparently had some kind of an optometrist store or something in the North at some point. So he was affectionately known as Doc. I mean, he kind of, with the little glasses, he looks like it. Anyway, George knew he had to get this guy. And at one point George had sales offices in every major city in the United States. And so Doc Dammers oversaw a sales force of 3,000 people at one point. I mean, it's a remarkable story of everything that got built between 1921, when those very first lots were sold, and 1926, when the hurricane hit in September. And then the only major public building that was built after that time by George Merrick and team was City Hall, which was completed in 1930. It started in 1927. But at any rate, yeah. So we did a lot of research and wrote up this. It's got a lot of great pictures in it, a lot of postcards, and the whole story of how the things came together to lead to that day. And so if you missed Doc Dammers Day and you're interested in this, you can contact the city's Department of Historical Resources and Cultural Arts, and they can get you one.
Awesome.
So,
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, I said this would be the last gentleman we talk about, so I just want to acknowledge a couple women, because what we tend not to realize is that the city of Coral Gables was also founded by women. And we talked about Edith, and we talked about Thea, and all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But one of them, and I'm sure you know well about, in the nature of history, Miracle Mile itself was founded mostly by a woman, Rebel Zane. And the Zanes, am I correct on this?
Mm-hmm.
And the Zanes were also involved in Lincoln Road. Right?
Oh, that I didn't know.
I think they were. I might be wrong. I don't want to, put any wrong information out there. So if anybody's listening and I'm wrong, tell me. We have 7 million viewers now.
Yeah, it's grown. Our audience has grown.
Yeah, Coral Gables was founded and really guided by women to what it is today. Rebel Zane being one of them, and the other, who we have yet to talk about on our show, and we really should have talked about her from the start. Somebody I knew growing up, and we've all talked about her today, is Roxy Bolton. Roxy Bolton was one of the first women activists here in South Florida. Did you know Roxy?
I did, but she would come in. She's donated a couple things to the Merrick House.
Okay.
So she would always come in with her daughter Bonnie, and so it was in her much later years that I had an acquaintance with her. But yeah, I didn't know her well.
We're gonna have to take an episode just to talk about the people, the history of people in Coral Gables. But Roxy was definitely one of those most influential individuals. We have a comment from Andres.
Yes, all this talk about people that have been very influential in the city of Miami has actually reminded me of the story of, in honor of Women's History Month, of Julia Tuttle, who moved into Miami in, I believe, the 1890s. And Henry Flagler at the time, who takes the namesake of the famous street Flagler, West Flagler.
Mm-hmm.
And Flagler College, my alma mater.
That's true.
Uh-huh.
He was the owner of the Florida East Coast Railway at the time. Mm-hmm. And in case any of you Florida residents in our audience here at home don't know this, but apparently he had only extended the railway to, I think, like Central Florida, right? Mm-hmm. And he didn't want to extend it all the way down to Miami because there was nothing there. There weren't too many people living there. It was very swampy and underdeveloped at the time. And Julia Tuttle was basically spearheading the effort in trying to get him to extend the railway. And the reason she was able to convince Henry Flagler to do it was because at the time, the United States was experiencing a prolific freeze that had basically turned all of the crop in the country to ice. It was very low temperatures, except for in Miami, Florida. And she convinced him by sending him a bouquet of flowers and a basket of oranges in the middle of December or January or winter, wherever it was. And he said, okay, well,
Yep.
I guess I'm going to build that
And
railway
she said,
after all.
I'll give you that land. So she gave him a
Very
good deal too.
influential
Yeah,
woman,
you do.
A little bit before Merrick's time, but still, pretty cool little tidbit of history I wanted to share.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, last week with the Dune comet, and now with a little bit of history, this man's.
I might replace you as my co-host.
Yeah.
Well, this is truly wonderful history. And when can our folks watching come and take a tour of the Merrick House?
So we're open Saturdays and Sundays. We have tours at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 3 o'clock.
Awesome. And speaking about this coming Sunday, we
Yeah.
have a wonderful event coming up. Andres, would you mind throwing the event up on our screen there? We have this Sunday a proper garden tea.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about this.
Okay, so this all came about because we have a wonderful collection of artifacts in the house. I mentioned to you earlier that the house went into a state of disrepair, and we are super lucky that we have 60% of our furnishings original to the family or to the people who worked with the Merricks. And why is that important? Well, because it sat empty so long, all of those furnishings went out, to various family members and hither and yon. And when the ladies of the junior league came in and said, okay, we're going to, make this happen and turn it into a museum, we need to get these back. So they got on the horn to everyone. And, Eunice Merrick, George's wife, was still alive at the time. Richard, the youngest, was still alive. And so, and then they just start putting the words out and got so much of the artifacts back. So we have Victorian furniture, and we have Althea's piano, and over 600 books that are original to the Merrick family. And one of the things we have sitting in this sideboard is a lot of really nice linens. And we thought, we need to catalog them, started cataloging them, and they're so beautiful. Why not show them? We should do a little special exhibit. Okay. And then we got to thinking further. Okay, let's celebrate all things hand done, because there are so many handicrafts that have been popular for centuries, in some cases thousands of years. People have been knitting since the Egyptian times. So we decided to offer this event that would celebrate those things that have stood the test of time. So we're showcasing our linens, we're showcasing antique, and I mean, this is for a very specific audience. I understand that's not everybody's cup of tea, if you will, but we have displays, and then we have people on the porch who will be, we're dressing in Victorian finery or something thereof. And they're going to be demonstrating smocking and crocheting and knitting and quilting and quilling, which is actually a paper craft. And then we're all wrapping it around a lovely tea. So that is going to be this Sunday, and it's going to be a beautiful day with lots of great things to show. And I feel it fits the mission of the Coral Gables Merrick House perfectly. This is what a house museum should be. And so we are selling tickets on Eventbrite, $45 per person. And sales are going really well. We're kind of bursting at the seams. So we ask people who are interested in coming to purchase your ticket in advance, please, so that we can have tea and goodies to go around.
Love it.
So,
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, the city of Coral Gables is very fortunate to have you involved.
I love living here. I
is
love
fortunate to
living
have you
here.
involved. We've learned so much from you today about Coral Gables, about Coconut Grove, about Miami. You're amazing. And that's why we have the
Thank
show,
you.
to highlight awesome people doing awesome things. We want to take a moment to talk about some things happening this weekend. And
Okay.
in addition to that, Saturday is the last day of the Coral Gables Farmers Market.
Oh my gosh.
It is.
over.
You know what's getting hot though.
We do, but we're going to talk about that in a
Hot.
moment.
Okay.
In a moment. This Saturday is from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. is the actual Coral Gables Market. They extended it this Saturday to celebrate the end of the season. So please be sure to stop by and check out great vendors. The city of Coral Gables has done a great job as always. And it's sad to see it go. But we've got some other great things on their way. One of the big is the Makers Market.
Yay!
So if you have not had the opportunity to stop by, we will not be there this Saturday. We're taking a little break, but we will be back on April 2nd. Makers Market is full. We are
Fantastic.
we have a waiting list now for vendors, which is super great.
Wow.
All artisan, local, handmade products. We've got everything from soaps and candles to jewelry to clothing to ice cream. We got some baked goods. The brewery, Bay 13, where the market is located, does have a $30 unlimited special for 2 hours. 2 hours. Beer, sangria, mimosas, and margaritas. Please be sure to stop by the Makers Market. Again, April 2nd, we'll be back. It's from, I'm forgetting my time, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And we'll be working on some cool activations. We did a speed dating event last week. Tony and I are working on a chess competition.
Sure are.
That's gonna be fun. We're gonna have a little. We're gonna put chessboards. May 6th, first
Saturday
of May. Also, just in the nature of the Oscars and film, and our sponsor, Hudak on Hollywood, the Oscars are actually on March 27th.
There you go.
They start at 8 p.m.
It was a Sunday, right?
It's a Saturday.
Saturday.
But on Sunday, it's Saturday, right?
No, it's Sunday.
It is Sunday?
27th is Sunday.
Oh, I can't see the date.
Yeah,
Okay.
27th
But the
is Sunday.
following day is the Oscars Aftermath upcoming with Hudak on Hollywood. That's March 28th at 7 p.m. via Zoom. If you are interested in listening to the aftermath of the Oscars with Mr. Dan Hudak himself, you can check that out at hudakonhollywood.com. Special thanks again to our sponsor today, Hudak on Hollywood. Joanne, we forgot to mention your wonderful family. And, you have 2 great kids and your husband.
2 great kids.
And where are your
great
kids
husband. Daughter's an actor living in New York, and son is in stop motion animation in LA.
Oh, that's super cool.
Cool.
Yeah, stop motion.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Any of their works that we can find anywhere?
So, well, Caitlin, I opened with that Meagher name, right? Well, Caitlin has her stage name, if you will, is Marr. So if you want to look up Caitlin Marr, Caitlyn Marr, you can find her real. So yeah.
Okay. And your son?
She's got, and he's Sean. Yeah, he hasn't posted much lately. So just what. Watch for more. Come back for more.
Was it now?
Yes, it was.
That would have been really weird.
Jason and the Argonauts was one of the big. I want to talk to your son.
Oh yeah. He would love.
Are they watching?
He's very. No, I don't think so.
They're gonna
I
have
may
to watch
tell
it.
them
You may
about
now
it.
tell
We'll
them
see.
to go watch it
We'll
now.
see. But he's also very much into podcasting and does some editing for podcasts and very much into improv.
Oh,
So yeah,
We're gonna-
he has a lot of
where they get it
interests. I wonder. And my husband at the tender age of 56 started a rock band. And he also plays trombone, and electric guitar, and acoustic guitar, and so
like a cover
Maybe we
band?
should
Are
have-
they doing their
he
own
does-
stuff? Or?
yeah, it's called LLP. You can
Okay.
find us sometimes at like the Rotary Club chili
Okay.
cook-off and stuff.
Oh, we
like
may have
that.
you at the Makers Market.
Yeah.
We should talk about that. That would be fun. We
Yeah,
want some
he
live
would
music.
love to do that.
We have a little stage we can use.
Uh-huh.
It'd be cool. That's awesome.
Nice.
So
I'm getting the time signal that we only have a few minutes left.
all right.
Do we have any
Wrap it up
comments
already?
None.
Normally we do.
I should say that I should have said that we have like 20 and we can't read them all.
Right.
Yeah, we got 7
Yes.
million viewers. What's going on here?
Yeah.
Well,
we've answered all your questions.
We've
That's
answered.
what it is.
We've been keeping everybody entertained. They're just so yeah. Well, Joanne, thank you so much for joining us today
It
on
was
In
my
the City.
absolute pleasure.
We will
to
see
hang
you
out
soon.
with both of you. It was so much fun. I'm coming back. I haven't talked about trash furniture yet, and paint in my, all my wonderful trash finds
You
in
do a
Coral
good job
Gables.
with refinishing.
Yeah. So,
furniture.
that's for another day.
Well, and we want to take a quick moment to let everybody know April 1st is our
Resourcity.
pilot launch.
Oh,
Yes.
my
So
God.
if you haven't heard about Resourcity yet, please be sure to follow us at Resourcity Co. on Instagram. You can find him at Norman
I don't even know
Newell.
what it is.
At Norman Newell.
No,
I'm
I
at
think
Nicholas
it's Norman Newell.
Arcabrera.
I
Do
think
you have an
it's Norman
Instagram?
Newell.
Do you have an Instagram?
I do.
What's your Instagram? So everybody can go and follow you.
Oh, Jojo Green Queen.
That is the coolest. That is the coolest handle I've ever heard. That's so awesome. Yeah, but be sure to check out the App Store on April 1st to download the Resourcity pilot. It'll be your opportunity to join all of the great communities that are going to be joining us for our launch, pilot launch. And you
Cool
can
communities.
some cool communities. You'll be able to support them. We're working on a
Great
new one
causes.
called Give Gables, which
Right.
is a collaboration between several businesses around Giralda and Miracle Mile, with the proceeds supporting the Coral Gables Community Foundation.
Yep,
So that is
we'll
going to
get
be
some really cool stuff from some
Yeah.
local businesses, and all proceeds will go to the Coral Gables Community Foundation.
A wonderful
So,
organization.
again, April 1st is our pilot launch. Thank you all for watching today. We have
a comment.
Oh,
It was
yay!
just very
Lola!
informative.
Thank you,
From
Lola.
our beautiful Lola.
Yay.
Yeah,
Thank
This
you.
was very informative.
Oh,
yeah, it was very informative. It was a great episode. Thank you all for tuning in today. We are in the city with Resourcity. Thank you
All right.
all, and we'll see you guys soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
good
all right.
times.
Bye.
Long live local.